I've built within these last 7 months, in order for us to have a better, stronger, and safer Chicago, it really requires the full force of government. And I've just released my full-out community safety plan that not only gets at the root causes of violence in the city of Chicago, but we're making critical investments. We have stood up an entire office dedicated to reentry. So individuals who are returning to our communities who have been incarcerated because of failed policies, we'll have a welcoming space for them. I've added a $500,000 for restoration and reparations to address, again, the cycle of violence.
Yeah, he should be a stand-up comedy because I'm laughing, Brian. I mean, this is so tragic. It's almost comical. I mean, let's go through the list, shall we? Equitable justice, how did that work out? You know, no cash bail, non-indemnification for police officers legally doing their job. You know, now what about the victims? We hear nothing but the victims. You know, talking about spending more taxpayer money for reparations, how about a novel idea of supporting the police, not defunding them, and enforcing the laws on the books, making safe spaces for criminals to further impact the victims who are more than likely persons of color? It makes absolutely no sense, Brian.
Yeah, not a word about the victims. You know, since Mayor Johnson took over from Mayor Lori Lightfoot, you remember her, murders are down 13%, but total violent crime is up 17%.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about woke Mayor Brandon Johnson and Chicago. People that you're not supposed to talk about, right? Brandon Johnson said you're not supposed to talk about him if you ain't from Chicago, but I've talked about him more than I ever have ever since he said that, because that was almost like a challenge to me. He says, don't talk about us, so okay, I'm going to keep talking about you, right? So we've been talking about woke Mayor Brandon Johnson and the illegal immigration crisis in Chicago, in which he has now joined Eric Adams and other Democratic leaders, mayors, governors, to essentially demand that the federal government, aka the Biden administration, do something about the problem, right? In his case, he wants more money, right? He really don't want the border to be closed. He's not demanding the border to be closed. He's not demanding for Biden to actually solve the problem. He's demanding for money, right? Because Democrats believe that the only way to solve problems is just to throw more money at it, right? Just throw money at the problem and it'll fix it, okay? And that's basically what he's doing to fight violent crime in Chicago that is out of control. Now, the liberal media is going to try to spin a narrative here because they think that you're ignorant. They're going to try to spin a narrative here that crime is down. Oh, well, crime is down from 2022, okay? But what they're going to fail to mention is the fact that since the pandemic, crime is up significantly, right? In fact, homicides in Chicago are up 43% since pre-pandemic levels. But again, if you listen to the mainstream liberal media, when they use their frame of reference, they try to make it seem like crime is going down and that the crime crisis is just, you know, a right-wing conspiracy theory when it's, in fact, a reality, right? This is what's happening in these liberal cities. Crime is out of control, right? So I want to react to this interview that woke Mayor Brandon Johnson did with CNN, because he's going to suggest that the way for Chicago to crack down on that out of control crime is not to hire more police officers or to get tougher on the criminals. No, it's actually to give them reparations, aka throw money at the problem and enable them to have a safe space, right? So again, I want to laugh at Brandon Johnson's ridiculous plan, because we've been talking about his crime plan before and he's been very vague about what he wants to do, but now he's actually coming out with some details and it's just as ridiculous as you would think. So without further ado, let's get into it.
It's also with his family. I know you're about 7 months in as mayor of Chicago. I do want to ask you about crime in Chicago. Just pouring through the latest data from the Chicago Police Department, the murder rate is down from 2022, but all other forms of violent crime, Mr. Mayor, are up from a year ago, up 17% overall. Are Chicagoans going to be safer in 2024?
What I've built within these last 7 months, in order for us to have a better, stronger, and safer Chicago, it really requires the full force of government. And as you've indicated, homicides are down, shootings are down.
Okay, again, this is what they try to do, right? This is how they try to trick you. They keep trying to throw this out there where homicides are down, shootings are down, but down from where, right? Down from where? If you are comparing the homicides and shootings being down from a historic high, but still up from pre-pandemic, levels. Now, during the pandemic, that's when crime spiked. As you can see here in Chicago, homicide spiked. Now, after the pandemic, there's some increase. Now, they say it's going to be down 13%. That's going to be about 630-ish homicides. However, that's not the final number. We probably won't get the final number until months later. But as you can see here, there was about 508 homicides in 2019. If you have 630 to 650-ish homicides in 2023, that's still an increase of 20 to 30%, okay, from pre-pandemic levels. So that's nothing to really celebrate because homicides are still elevated since the pandemic began. But when you look at all other statistics on crime, whether it be like assaults, robberies, car thefts, things of that nature, all those things are up, right? Those things are going up, right? So even from pre-pandemic levels, they're continuing to rise year over year over year. So they're just getting worse under Brandon Johnson, right? The one thing he does have going for him is that even though homicides are still elevated and shootings are still elevated since the pandemic began, they're going down year over year. But it's still nothing to celebrate, despite the fact that the mainstream liberal media, they're going to try to spin the narrative on violent crime in these cities by using incomplete data, right? This is what they're going to do. So I want to prepare you guys for that because that's the new narrative that's going to come from the mainstream liberal media going into next year is that, well, crime is down, right? Crime is down in these liberal cities. This is just the right-wing talking point, right? To try to save these mayors who are facing disaster approval ratings like Brandon Johnson, a full clown, by the way. I mean, like, who wears a mohawk, right? This guy has a mohawk, and he's a mayor of a major city. Again, complete and total clown show.
But yes, what we've experienced in the city of Chicago, cities all over the country are experiencing. And I've just released my full-out community safety plan that not only gets at the root causes of violence in the city of Chicago, but we're making critical investments. Those investments look like what I've presented in my last budget, $250 million to address homelessness, $100 million for violence prevention. We added $80 million more to our youth employment program, of which we hired 25,000 young people just this summer. That's a 20% increase from the previous year. I'm going to hire 4,000 additional young people this summer. We have stood up an entire office dedicated to reentry. So individuals who are returning to our communities who have been incarcerated because of failed policies, we'll have a welcoming space for them. I've added $500,000 for restoration and reparations to address, again, the cycle of violence, which looks like school closings, closing of mental health facilities, of which I've invested in now. We're going to open up 2 mental health clinics that were closed from 2 previous administrations ago. And so in order for us to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago, it requires investments. And that's what this budget has done, a $16.77 billion budget without raising property taxes. And we're just getting started in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Okay, what did Brandon Johnson actually really say there, right? Did anybody hear anything about getting tougher on crime? Okay, in regards to, I don't know, putting more cops on the streets, allowing officers to actually do their jobs, arresting criminals and keeping them locked up, actually prosecuting, going after criminals, being tough, getting them off the streets. Did anybody hear anything that, in my opinion, would actually help crime? No, right? All I heard was that, hey, we're going to throw hundreds of millions and billions of dollars at the problem, right? We're going to give criminals safe spaces and we're going to have reparations, right? $500,000 in reparations, which I actually think he meant $500 million. I don't think he meant $500,000, but even still, right? I mean, he's talking about reparations. This guy thinks that reparations is going to help solve crime. He thinks that crime is going to come down by simply throwing money at people, giving people money, right? When, in my opinion, personally, and you can disagree with me, I think that crime really is more of a culture problem. Now, that's not to say that with poverty doesn't come crime, but with crime also comes poverty, right? I think they both have a relationship to each other. However, like I always say, you cannot invest in a community that is crime ridden, right? You can't just throw money at the problem and then say, well, we're not really going to deal with the crime. We're not going to get the bad apples off the street, right? We're not going to lock up the criminals. We're just going to invest money in these neighborhoods, and all of a sudden the criminals will become law-abiding citizens. They're going to get good jobs, and they're going to become astronauts and lawyers and doctors and investment bankers and, all these, positive contributors to society, which that is what some people believe, right? They really do believe that these career criminals, right, people who know nothing but crime and violence and gang activity, that all of a sudden they're going to put that aside because the government is throwing money at them, right? Essentially saying, well, the government's paying them not to do it. I personally think that the criminals are going to not only take the government's money, right, but they're also going to take the government's money that was given to other people, right, because they're criminals, right? That's all they know. So I think you got to clean up that first, right? You got to lock them up first, and then you can come in with the investments. Then you can come in with the jobs, because you're not going to create jobs in a community that is crime-ridden, right? The criminals are essentially going to rob these businesses out of existence, which has happened in Chicago, like, for example, Walmart. And these people boohoo whine and cry racism when Walmart decided to leave because they couldn't make money, right? They couldn't turn a profit. So again, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at the residents, right? In regards to reparations or violence prevention or whatever, right? Which, again, what the hell does that mean, right? What does violence prevention mean? Okay, he doesn't actually go into any details about what he's doing. But regardless, throwing money at the problem is not going to fix it. But hey, here's the thing about this, right? I will say, I am fascinated by Chicago's progressive woke experiment because I want to see the actual results, right? I want to see if this works. If Brandon Johnson can get crime, murder, like crime across the board, right? If he can get crime across the board back down to pre-pandemic levels or below that, right? If he can get it below that, and we know that it's a direct result of his plan and his policies, I'll give him credit. I'll come out here and say, you know what? I was wrong. Right? But I don't think this is going to happen, right? I don't think that Brandon Johnson is going to get Chicago's crime back down to pre-pandemic levels. Maybe he will. But the only way he could actually, again, come out here and give a victory lap on crime is if he gets crime back down to pre-pandemic levels across the board. Not just one statistic, but across the board. Everything is down, right? I just don't think that's going to happen. And this is why I say that Republicans need to point at woke mayors like this guy right here and say, yeah, all Democrats are like this, right? This is what all Democrats want to do, right? Because this guy right here is really the archetype for the Democrat Party. Like, this is the future of the Democrat Party, right? This is one of their rising stars. He's a woke, black progressive, okay? This is the future of the Democrat Party. This is what you're voting for. And look at the results in Chicago so far. It's been an absolute disaster. They're putting illegals over citizens. Crime is out of control. Criminals have been emboldened. Teenagers are taking over the city. So, yeah, I mean, look, part of me, I hate the fact that, the black folks in Chicago and everybody else is being used as crash test dummies for woke progressive policies. But low key, hey, I'm fascinated to see the results. I want to see if it works. I don't think it's going to work, but I want to see, right? I want to see what will the results of this woke experiment from Brandon Johnson, because these people swear up and down. They swear up and down, oh, no, you just have to just throw money at the problem and it'll go away. Just like they say, yeah, just throw money at the public schools and the kids will have better outcomes, except we spend more money than ever on public schools and our kids are getting the worst results, outcomes ever. Because our public schools don't actually teach kids real skills or even the basics of reading, writing, and math anymore. It's more about woke gender ideology and left-wing ideology. That's what it's about. So again, it'd be fascinating to see if, this plan here from Mayor Brandon Johnson actually works.
Look, the last thing that I'll say on this, look, my wife and I, we're raising our 3 children on the west side of Chicago. It's a beautiful part of the city. We love it. But it also has been the side of the city of Chicago that has experienced gross disinvestment from school closings, from lack of transportation, from lack of investments. And so I wake up every single day in one of the most toughest parts of the city. And so there is no one in this city who thinks about public safety more than someone like me who was raised in a family on the west side of Chicago. So I'm very much committed to investments so that the better, stronger, safer Chicago that we're all hoping for, we can actually see the full fruit of our labor.
Yeah, I'm committed to throwing money at the problem. I'm not committed to actually solving the problem by cracking down on crime or being tough on criminals. So, I mean, who knows, right? I mean, I'm sure Brandon Johnson, despite claiming to grow up or to live in a neighborhood that's experiencing, crime or whatever, I'm pretty sure he has protection with him everywhere he goes, right? I'm pretty sure he's not trying to defund his police and his security while he's trying to defund everybody else's stuff. But hey, we'll see if it works. I want to see. We can place bets in the comment section, right, in regards to whether or not Brandon Johnson's crime plan is going to work. However, I don't think so. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.